Orange juice just feels like capturing sunshine into like liquid form. Like premium orange juice is truly what the gods of Olympus were drinking as their like immortal nectar. But then bad orange juice is just like so blah and like one-dimensional. It doesn't compare to like hand-pressed good stuff. I want texture, I want different flavors, I want dimension. Why is this not giving? What makes some orange juice taste like oranges and other orange juice just taste like puffy, disgusting white rind? Hey, I'm Niba, and these are my notes on a sweet study that helped figure out what makes oranges taste orange. Also, you know I had to get dressed up for it, and this time I painted tiny little oranges on my face. Like, oranges are so versatile. You can use them as like a kitchen witch vibe, string them up, like put them in little potpourris. Very cute. And you know that the moment you walk into someone who's like got a kitchen witch aesthetic, that food is about to be good. I'm also going to be doing an orange inspired makeup look because oranges are just so like iconic, so bright, so recognizable. Like the color is the name. I like that a lot in a fruit, the iconicness. Like you don't get that in a persimmon, but oranges, iconic. I like that a lot in a fruit versus something like a persimmon, just not as slay. Flavors in general just blew my mind. How is it that these compounds made by plants give me feelings of niceness on my tongue? It's one of those things that if I stop to think about it a little bit, it manages to like lift me out of the sads every time I'm feeling depresso espresso. Like, holy cow, nature truly is so freaking wild and we're just tiny little specks in this giant world, but at least we get to taste really cool things. So today when we talk about flavor, it would probably be helpful to clarify what exactly flavor is because it's a lot more than just the nice sensations that we get on our tongue. You might already know that it's a mix of taste and smell, but it can also be affected by the sensations of pain and temperature and touch. So when you eat food, how it smells, feels, looks, and tastes, that's all part of the experience together. So all of this together is flavor, which includes the taste, the smell, and it also includes the trigeminal sensations, which is like the texture, the temperature, the pain, and it also includes auditory cues, like if there's any crunchiness or sizzle, like pop rocks, that kind of thing. And then we obviously had to pull out the orange corset top for the video about oranges. For more stories about nature and botany and flowers, you can check out my socials. I'm at NotesByNiba on all platforms. And to help create more stories of plants and nature, you can check out my Ko-Fi, Coffee. The link is in the description, and at some point I'll figure out how it's pronounced. And if you want to support for free or support even more, you can link the video, comment your favorite fruit juice, and subscribe. Of course, now that I have this ensemble fully on, I'm debating if I should have worn this white thing, so let's try that instead. Okay, the texture of this feels a little bit more like the white rind of an orange to me. So oranges right now are actually getting wiped out by this disease called Huanglongbin, or citrus greening disease. It's been destroying crops literally all over the world. And I got to fulfill my lifelong dream last year of actually hosting a food, travel, science, community, and culture show on PBS called Hungry Planet, where we actually got to meet these scientists and talk to them about various ways that they're trying to combat this disease. And we also got to talk to the people who are affected by it. So in that episode, we got to taste a bunch of different citrus, from like yuzu to finger limes to like little tiny mandarins. So in the show, we have a bunch of different episodes about like rice and tomatoes and chilies, and the chili episode really humbled how much spice I could take. But I highly recommend checking out that episode if you want to get more information about like the disease and economic factors and kind of like the problems that are facing citrus right now. And meanwhile, in this video, I wanted to focus on taste. What makes an orange an orange? This is kind of a big bow. Let's reduce that size. So I think this is going to be the outfit that we work with. We have like little leaves on the hands and tiny little white flowers because orange flowers are also white. I think they're really adorable. So let's get into makeup. But before I nerd out about this recent study of like what makes an orange, I want to like set the stage in terms of like where we were at with our like technology in terms of figuring out what is a flavor. Because if you think about it, like how do you measure flavor? Because this is kind of a newer science. And so when it started out, they wanted to measure things that were really easy to measure, like sugar and acids. And obviously oranges are so important because you have to keep the scurvy at bay. And then there were some pretty big changes in the 1950s. So with gas chromatography, we could now separate and identify all the different like volatiles in citruses. So like all of the smells. And this was further enhanced by mass spectroscopy and capillary gas chromatography. What I found interesting though is that the like volatiles that were really huge and like really present, they actually weren't the major contributors to flavor. It turns out like the things that were were a little bit less common, the trace compounds were bigger contributors. So what I mean by that is that plants make a lot of smells, and only some of those can be scented by us, and of those, only some of them actually contribute to flavor. And after that, there were some technological advancements in sample analysis. So the analytics techniques improved, which meant that instead of having like liters and liters of samples, you could just do it in milliliters now. And it also meant they could detect things as small as micrograms per liter. And then they combined the gas chromatography with olfactometry, which made it better at identifying and assessing like aroma-active compounds. All the different smells or gases are first separated by gas chromatography and then get sent to what's known as a sniffing port, where a person sniffs the gas and gives a sensory response. And every time they smell something, they push a button and describe the smell. And so there's still subjectivity and human error, but GCO gives a more complete picture with this additional sensory human data. And so now in the modern day, people really love doing models, like predictive models, computer models, etc. And what's interesting is that a lot of the early models for flavor didn't actually like perform that well, which, you know, it's to be expected, it's the first ones. But like those models based on the non-volatile compounds, they kind of failed. Flavor is super complex, and these early models didn't have enough data to understand the many interactions that contribute to it. So they overlooked the effects of minor volatile compounds. They also didn't account for how like different flavors can enhance or mask each other. And in flavor science, when you increase something, that doesn't always like directly correspond to how it's going to taste. So you need to use nonlinear stats instead of linear stats. Current models are not only better at predicting these interactions, but they also include other senses like texture and mouthfeel and even individual preferences. Like genetic differences and your past experiences and your cultural background can all influence like how you perceive the way that something tastes. And now there's also advanced machine learning like neural networks, which like when we combine that with genomic data and what people like in real time, all of this makes current models way stronger. It is wild to me how many differences there are in flavor, like the difference between mechanically pressed orange juice and like hand-pressed orange juice. The mechanically pressed obviously has like a lot more, but it's actually from the peel. Like the peel of the orange contributes to the flavor. There are over 300 volatiles in orange juice and 36 of them are aroma active. Like no wonder it's so hard to get like the flavor to be in a candy when it's like that complex. So all of this brings us to today, where the challenges are like, how can we come up with an orange that will be able to resist this disease? And that'll obviously require a lot of testing with advanced tools. The other problem is that gas chromatography olfactometry helps us figure out like what are the major volatiles and how strong are they, but it doesn't tell us about like how they interact with each other or how they interact on our tongue to create taste. And recent models are getting a lot better, but they're still not quite able to predict like how these flavors will combine in natural fruit, which like that makes sense. It's really complex. Like citrus flavors come in so many different shapes and sizes. One of my favorite is this thing called a finger lime. It's sort of also known as like citrus caviar because instead of the like juice bubbles coming in like little cylinders the way they do in oranges, in finger limes they come in like little spheres, and the texture of that just feels like so satisfying. It's like tiny little mini boba of lime flavor. It's so good. And you can see that and all the other cool things over on that Hungry Planet episode. But now I want to get into like this really cool study that helped identify like what makes oranges orange. So I came across this like extremely recent study called the Chemical and Genetic Basis for Orange Flavor. This is the only brown eyeliner that ever comes out brown. Researchers from Florida and Hawaii analyzed over 179 orange juice samples. So they found 60 volatile compounds that define the flavor profiles of mandarins, oranges, and trifoliate fruits. Trifoliate fruits refers to the trifoliate orange that's a bit of a poser citrus. It's been a bit of a debate whether it should just be part of the citrus family, but right now it's part of its own separate genus within that family. And it's also called tri because it has this like iconic leaf pattern with 3 leaflets. Moment of truth. So they started off by using gas chromatography and mass spec to analyze these. Mandarins and oranges both had these like very distinct volatile profiles, and trifoliate hybrids acted like hybrids, and they had like overlapping characteristics between all 3 groups. There are people out there who are trained in tasting, and I find that absolutely wild. I wish I could be one of them, but I don't know if my favorite flavor palette is like good enough. I don't know. But there was a group of like trained flavor testers that then tasted all those like orange juice samples for distinct like orange and mandarin flavors. And so these guys help provide the sensory data that's part of this whole equation. So then the researchers were able to create a statistical model to figure out like what are the key components in orange flavor. And the model spit out 26 important compounds. There were terpenes, esters, aliphatic alcohols, aldehydes, and ketones. And when we try to differentiate oranges from mandarins, there were actually 7 esters that were really important in this. These esters are known for creating fruity aromas. I've listed them over here if you're curious. And what's interesting is that 6 of them are synthesized by an enzyme called CSAAT1, which stands for... I don't know. So they looked at the gene that was encoding for this enzyme and looked at like, how is this gene behaving across different plants? Like, do all plants increase it a bunch? Do all plants express it a lot? Or is it just not expressed in some of them? That kind of thing. And then they did some experiments where they increased that enzyme in order to figure out like, how does this impact the flavor? They did this change in the trifoliate orange and in a hybrid orange called US Sundragon, which comes also from trifoliates. So when this gene is overexpressed, it makes more of that enzyme, which then makes more of that ester, which sure enough makes it taste more orangey. So they literally made the oranges more orange. But what's really cool is that by figuring this out, we can now breed tastier oranges. So I did some gene analysis to figure out like where it came from, and it turns out that it is inherited from pomelos. And so when we know stuff like this, that means that we can like mark that gene as being like, hey, this gene causes this enzyme, and this enzyme causes like these 6 esters, which are definitely yummy. So what we want to do is make sure that gene is there whenever we make future oranges, so that way we can make sure those ones are yummy too. Now to finally draw some oranges on my face. Similar to this study, there's a lot of studies being done to figure out all the different components that go into orange flavor. This will all help create new citrus flavored products, or maybe even improve the existing ones that are already on the market. So the better we understand citrus flavor, the better off we'll be, not just for like food and beverage, but also for like sustainable ag, like making sure we're creating products, aka oranges, that are actually yummy and we want to eat. And as we breed crops, we have to think about not just like flavors, but also like disease resistance and climate crisis. How can we breed things that are like a little more environmentally friendly and yummy, and also like less environmentally damaging? And citrus fruits are so important in the world of global agriculture. Oh, I totally forgot to wear earrings. We'll do these little circles to represent oranges. But yeah, like the amount of oranges the world was producing tripled between 1961 to 2001. I'm adding the final touches of makeup right now, and I just want to say there's truly nothing more gross than the white rind of an orange. Like, it is just so powdery and flavorless, and the texture is just nasty. Like, to me, an ideal orange would just be like a ball of pure fruit with 0 rind inside. It's just all like juicy, delicious goodness, and none of this white nonsense, I say as I am about to draw these white freckles. Oh boy. Okay, so I think this is the finished look. Here are my little oranges. Aren't they so cute? And like little green leaves, along with this for the orange flowers that oranges make. And here is the outfit. This is all white for, you know, the gross rind that no one really wants to eat, or at least I don't want to eat. Then there's this brown skirt to represent like the trunk. And yeah, I'm pretty into it. I feel very cute, like a little orange fairy. Time to now take off my makeup and go back to my day job. So there you have it. My oranges are orange. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you didn't, please tell me why, because, you know, I'm trying to get better. Leave a comment if you have any ideas about what kind of stories I should get into next, and I'll see you on the next page. My face is so sleepy. Such a sleepy girl.